Greetings, all! Today, we'll be examining the members of the Ore Trio, namely the legendary Fairy-type Pokemon Xerneas, the Life Pokémon, the legendary Dark Flying-type Pokemon Yveltal, the Destruction Pokémon, and the legendary Dragon Ground-type Pokemon Zygarde, the Order Pokémon. Representing the vital essence of life, destruction, and the order that must be struck between them to keep the world safe, the members of the Ore Trio are powerful beasts whose mere presence can conjure expressions of awe and terror to those that witness the power that is at their disposal.
Xerneas takes on the form of a massive, deer-like creature with a black main body and tail, with whitish gold marks on its front legs, while the upper part of its frame and back have a royal blue color to them, complete with a split crest at the base of its neck and a small patch of whitish gold hair at the center. Its pointed head and black eyes are almost hidden by the massive crown of antlers that sprouts from its head, a gilded array of golden spikes with multicolored ends that shine brightly when its powers are fully active. Yveltal takes on the form of a massive bird with two massive wings and a long bony tail, with a stylized pattern of black and grey feathers on the back of its frame and brilliant scarlet red feathers covering the inner parts of its form, with a spidery network of black veins that visibly course around it, further sporting 5 digit-like extensions of bone at the end of its wings and its long tail. It also features a pair of small legs with silver-clawed 3-toed feet, as well as a wispy mane of silver-grey feathers around its neck, a black double crest of flesh on its pointed head, a small mouth, and bright aquamarine-colored eyes. Zygarde takes 3 different forms depending upon how complete it currently is, with its base 10% form taking on the appearance of a lithe black dog, with hexagonal-like extensions of flesh on its legs and hindquarters, as well as a canine-like head with black polygonal ears and a green mouth with 3 sharp teeth in its lower jaw. It also has 3-toed front feet, its left front leg being green in color, with a pair of hexagonal green markings on the front of its chest, a pair above its white eyes like eyebrows, and a green band around the base of its neck that trails off into a green ribbon-like extension while containing a red hexagonal gem on it that acts as the core of the beast. In its 50% form, Zygarde takes on the appearance of a massive serpent with black and green hexagonal scales covering its back, with a multi-split tail end, green underbelly, and serpentine head, with spots of green and white hexagonal scales dotting its frame and face, the latter having slight rigid eye crests and a white line that runs down the middle of its face. Its back is adorned with 5 large black wing-like extensions of flesh in a fan-like formation attached to the back of its neck, each having a pointed polygonal end, and a pair of green scales on the front and a single green scale on the back, each near the ends. In its complete form, Zygarde takes on a much larger, more humanoid appearance, with a body covered in black scales and bits of green and white scales across its form, still retaining a thin tail, but also now featuring a pair of thin arms with bulky green hexagonal plates forming its wrists and larger white plates acting as claws for it, its upper torso having a large bulky shape to it, as well as a pair of eye-like green patterned scales and an open crevice in its chest that glows with a blue, white, and red color. It has a pair of large tassel-like extensions of flesh on each side of its body connected to its shoulders that have unique red and blue scales on them, red on its left side and blue on its right, and its humanoid head has a black and green spike in front of it and a collar of flesh around its neck, the head itself having a multi-barbed crown-like structure to it with a green scaly mouth, white eyes, and a white and green crest marking on its forehead.
As a result of the relative seclusion of its existence, even within the most ancient legends of the Kalos region, little is concretely known about the powers of Xerneas and its importance to the overall environment of the Kalos region. What little there is known, however, more than classifies it as a beast of truly legendary proportions.
From what can be told, Xerneas has disguised itself to look like a servant of some sort, to blend in with the forested land that surrounds much of the Kalos region. But this disguise does little to hide the sheer amount of power the beast radiates through its fairy force. As with more traditional fairy-type Pokemon, Xerneas is unable to truly infuse its attacks with fairy force energy due to the mechanics of the fairy force, but this does not really matter. The concentration factor of its fairy force energy is so intense that it can heal the sick and cure the lame, effectively infusing everything around it with pure life energy. When resting in its neutral mode, the massive antlers of this beast are a light blue color and don't shine at all. When the beast is in its active mode, however, its antlers glow a brilliant display of 7 colors and radiate life energy everywhere, creating an energy field so intense that it can effectively bring the dead back to life in some cases. The source of this magnificent energy is still a relative mystery, as it seems that Xerneas is able to produce nearly infinite amounts of it without draining itself. For a time. After it has been awake for about 1,000 years or has otherwise spent all of its stored energy, however, it must rest in order to recover its energy, entering a 1,000-year sleep in which it takes on the appearance of an old tree to protect itself from direct attack. After another 1,000 years, the beast awakens, and the cycle repeats. This means that most societies within the Kalos region have only known about this legendary creature as a legend and little more, which only adds to the mystery surrounding it. Despite this, it is known that Xerneas is a powerful beast capable of wielding a wide assortment of devastating attacks in battle and is possession of incredible power unseen among other species. For one thing, the beast radiates such intense power from its fairy force that it effectively has the effect of increasing the damaging power of fairy-type attacks used by any and all Pokemon in battle. This special ability, referred to as the Fairy Aura ability, is completely unique to Xerneas and proudly highlights its innate fairy-type powers. Moreover, Xerneas is able to naturally draw from the power of all living things around it to temporarily energize its body. This signature technique, the Geomancy technique, requires a bit of time to prepare, but heavily increases the speed and special powers of Xerneas when fully activated. In addition to all of this, and looking at the creature's base stats, it can be seen that the beast exudes incredible power across all of its main stats, with its base special defense stat being the only one that is not above average for a fully evolved fairy-type Pokemon. And with the wide variety of offensive attacks at its disposal, it's no wonder that this creature is often revered as a genuine deity above the lives of most others.
Much as with Xerneas, due to the relative seclusion of its existence even within the ancient legends of the Kalos region, little is known about the powers of Yveltal and its importance in the overall environment of the Kalos region. What little there is known, however, again, more than classifies it as a beast of truly legendary proportions.
From what can be told, Yveltal is a monstrous beast that takes on the form of a massive bird, readily differentiated from other birds by the presence of a massive bony tail that gives its overall wing pattern a bizarre Y shape unseen in modern specimens. The existence of such a strange appendage suggests that Yveltal as a species may be incredibly ancient in age, older perhaps than even Xerneas. Whether this is completely true or not, however, is yet to be seen. Regardless, it seems that Yveltal is purely organic in its form, and does not possess any obvious biological characteristics that are inconsistent with traditional bird anatomy, thus making it less of a deity than Xerneas might seem to represent. This does not detract from its powers, however, as Yveltal is a destructive beast with the unusual capacity to utilize anti-positive energy freely enough to be considered a Dark-type Pokemon. What truly makes Yveltal a monster, however, is the fact that, in contrast to Xerneas' ability to release pure life energy, Yveltal has the capacity to steal pure life energy from nearby life forms in order to sustain themselves. Yveltal is believed to live for about 1,000 years or so. At the end of its life, this beast will absorb the life energy of all nearby organisms and then enter a cocoon-like state of stasis, under which it will survive off its last meal for another 1,000 years before reawakening and repeating the cycle. This means that societies within the Kalos region usually have only known about this legendary creature as a legend and little more, which only adds to the mystery surrounding it. Despite this, it is known that Yveltal is a powerful beast capable of wielding a wide assortment of devastating attacks in battle and is possessed of incredible power unseen among other species, much like Xerneas. For one thing, the beast is able to absorb and generate so much anti-positive energy within its body that it constantly exudes a damaging aura of energy. This signature ability, known as the Dark Aura ability, has the effect of energizing all Pokemon on the battlefield with anti-positive energy, and in turn increasing the damaging capacity of all Dark-type attacks. In addition, Yveltal's capacity to absorb life energy is perfectly demonstrated through its signature attack, the Oblivion Wing attack, in which it spreads its wings and tail wide before emitting a devastating ray of energy onto a nearby target. This attack may not be extremely powerful, but it exceeds the healing abilities of almost all other moves, effectively healing Yveltal 75% of the damage done to a target, and has been known to even petrify those whose life energy is almost completely drained away. Add to this the fact that it is the only Pokemon known to be able to naturally learn the Focus Blast attack, and it quickly becomes clear that Yveltal's title of the Destruction Pokémon is more than well earned. This is even further demonstrated in its base stats, as the creature contains such immense power across the board that all of its base stats are above average for a fully evolved Dark and Flying type Pokemon, with an emphasis on its offensive stats and stamina, and the highest base stat total out of all Dark and Flying type Pokemon, the former tied with Hoopa Unbound, and the latter tied with Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Rayquaza, more than rendering it a true deity and a fearsome sight to behold in any battle scenario.
Xerneas and Yveltal tend to remain out of public view as a result of the unique role in the ecosystem of the Kalos region, but it is worth mentioning that they have appeared very recently in at least 2 occasions, the first which being the Diamond Domain incident from 9 years ago.
A Diancie known to be the princess of a place called the Diamond Domain was called upon by her carving subjects to recreate a legendary object known as the Heart Diamond, a giant piece of fairlight that had the ability to energize all the Pokemon that live within the underground kingdom and effectively serve to keep it together, supplying large pillar-like fairlight growths that kept the deep cavern from collapsing with stabilizing energy. However, at the time of this incident, the gem was beginning to lose the final bits of power left in it, and the Diancie that served as royalty was the only Pokemon capable of creating a new one. But the beast was still quite young and did not have the power needed to perfectly create a new Heart Diamond that was stable enough to exist in solid form. To solve this, the Diancie and her closest advisors traveled out into the open world in search of Xerneas, whose Fairy Aura ability could potentially energize Diancie and enable her to create a stable Heart Diamond. In doing so, she ran into both a group of young kids that decided to help her in her journey, and a number of professional thieves looking to do little aside from steal the Diancie and use it to create diamonds to fund their criminal operations. Eventually, however, after traveling into the All-Earth Forest, which no human had entered in perhaps centuries, the children and Diancie found Xerneas, having recently awoken from a 1,000-year slumber, who stated that Diancie had the power to complete her task even without its assistance. Unfortunately, the meeting was brief as the thieves, in their haste to steal Diancie, accidentally awakened Yveltal from a slumber that it had been in since the last time it had been active, during which it almost completely destroyed the All-Earth Forest. The beast took to the skies and started to destroy everything in its path, using its Oblivion wing attack to steal the life energy of everything around it and petrifying all that it touched in turn. Thankfully, Diancie, with a helping care of her friends, managed to find the courage to help them, and in doing so, accidentally activated a Mega Stone that it unintentionally created beforehand out of happiness from meeting and making new friends. This allowed it to Mega Evolve into Mega Diancie, and it then proceeded to create a Heart Diamond that was able to fully block Yveltal's attack, giving Xerneas enough time to ward off Yveltal and calm its rage. Xerneas then went on to sacrifice itself to heal the damage the beast had done, turning it into a tree in the process to start the cycle of creation and destruction all over again. In the end, Diancie was able to create a new Heart Diamond and restored her kingdom to prosperity once more, finally becoming the true guardian of the kingdom that her subjects needed, and in turn bringing peace to the region once more.
Xerneas and Yveltal were additionally cited during their role in the AZ incident not too long from the last one.
3,000 years ago, AZ, the great king of Colossian legend, lost a Floette that was very dear to his heart in a great war that pitted the Pokemon and people of the Kalos region against each other. In unimaginable grief, he built a grand machine that used the power of Xerneas in combination with the sacrificed life energy of other Pokemon to revive his deceased Pokemon and in turn grant it immortality. Due to the nature of the machine, however, AZ was contaminated in the process, making him too immortal. Although he had managed to bring back the Pokemon he loved, he was filled with such hate that he converted the machine into a weapon and, harnessing the power of Yveltal and even the more innocent lives, initiated a massive extinction event that ended the war by destroying almost every living thing in the region. Disgusted by his actions and the fact that it was brought back with the life energy of other Pokemon, his prized Floette abandoned him, taking its mutant Eternal Flower with it. In the present, Lysander, the head of Team Flare, wished to cleanse the world of the filth and corruption that humanity had brought to the planet, and sought the ultimate weapon, or the Reaper of Ambrotos as referred to today, to fulfill his wishes. Greed and a lack of resources for an ever-growing population of people only led to war and destruction in Lysander's eyes. The only way to reset the world to a state of harmony was to destroy most of humanity and all of the Pokemon, so nothing would be left for them to fight over. Using his own heritage and resources, Lysander found AZ and coerced him into giving him the key to the ultimate weapon, which he ultimately re-energized by capturing the legendary Pokemon Xerneas and Yveltal, both of them placed into a state of stasis as a result of the recent conflict during the Diamond Domain incident. A young trainer, however, stood up to his plans and managed to reawaken the legendary creatures, who proceeded to drain most of the energy that had been taken from them back from the ultimate weapon before escaping. With only enough energy to fire a single shot, Lysander chose to end his legacy without having to face the consequences of his failure by targeting himself. In the end, his act destroyed the Reaper of Ambrotos, and while the young trainer and the remainder of Team Flare escaped the base when it was destroyed, Lysander did not, and it is not currently known whether he is dead or managed to survive the blast.
Zygarde's origins are still a great mystery to science, and very little research has been conducted on it, as it generally tends to live in secluded locales when it can, or anywhere safe where there is a steady stream of sunlight accessible.
This creature is solar-powered, and therefore tends to bask in the sun for long periods of time, which works well for it as it does not need to feed at all, instead getting all the energy it needs directly from the sun. It also tends to live in secluded areas, and does not interact with the human world all that much on its own, preferring instead to remain hidden from human view so it may live and exist in peace. While its form may appear quite solid, in all reality, Zygarde is a singular name used to refer to a collection of 100 individual components that work together as a legion when taking on the guise of this legendary monster. Individual components of the creature are split into Zygarde cells and Zygarde cores. While the cells and cores look very similar, with a snake-like body and green squishy flesh, they are different because while the cells have no real form of sentience, the cores do, and are in essence the creatures responsible for commanding the cells and other cores when Zygarde needs to take on a discrete collective form. Physically, the cells and cores can also be differentiated from each other by the presence of a large crystal-like growth in the bellies of their cores, which effectively serve as their brain. On their own, these cells and cores are technically not considered to be complete Pokemon, as they have no way to attack or defend themselves. It is not entirely sure why these cells and cores normally exist independently of each other, but it seems that the most likely reason is that they are unable to maintain a physical form for long and small numbers, as coming together to form a construct is a serious strain on their energy reserves. It is also believed that this reason may be due to the fact that the creatures are secretly monitoring the global ecosystem and thus need to be spread out over a very large area in order to ensure that a balance of creation and destruction can be maintained. This is what is said about the creature in ancient legend, and from the few times that the creature has been observed in a partially complete state, this hypothesis seems to pan out, as the cores have the ability to teleport other cores and cells to them at any time in order to make use of that power to protect the environment, though the type of form that it takes on depends heavily on how many of the cells and cores they can convince to join them in protecting something or someone. The method in which Zygarde cells and cores actually combine together to form a Zygarde in the first place is not well understood, but it is believed that they can do so by excreting a powerful biological cement laced with their own genetic material that allows them to generate living tissue between them like a netting that they can then stitch together rapidly, under the orders of one or more cores, in order to create a form that on the outside looks to have a form similar to other animals, despite being little more than a loose collection of cells and cores stuck together at intermittent points in their body frame. From what can be observed so far, it seems that there are 3 possible forms the Zygarde can take, depending upon the number of cells and cores that are used. The weakest of its forms is its 10% form, which, as one might imagine, is comprised of 10 of the 100 Zygarde cells and cores known to exist. In this form, the creature takes on the appearance and physical attributes of a dog, with an added string of material that looks like a ribbon, but is actually an extrasensory organ used for navigation, as their infrared vision is not very useful in this form. While it lacks much in the way of bulk, 10% form Zygarde is gifted with relatively decent stats all around, with a strong emphasis on speed, and is skilled in close quarters combat. In fact, the creature can run as fast as 60 miles per hour in this state, allowing it to outrun most of the opponents easily while striking in close quarters with its sharp fangs, sinking them deep into the chests of its opponent. This form might grant these creatures access to all of the base moves and powers that Zygarde normally possess, but this form is not a stable one because it is only controlled by a single Zygarde core. Without other cores to link mentally with to hold the formation of cells together, this form tends to dissolve shortly after it is created, making it a creation these beasts will only make if they need to access at least some of their power to overcome a terrible situation. If at least half of the cells and cores come together with a minimum of at least 2 cores, then the creature will take on its 50% form, which is the form that most researchers and explorers are familiar with. In this state, these creatures take on the form of a serpent and possess geometric scales on them that provide a major boost to their defenses, and overall, this form is much stronger than its 10% form. What experiences a moderate decrease in its base speed stat, its base HP stat doubles, and it experiences a slight increase in its base special defense stat, a moderate increase in its base special attack stat, and an astronomical increase in its base defense stat. In this state, the white geometric splotches on its form become its eyes, and while the structure is highly unusual and seems quite primitive, the creature has good depth perception and motion tracking abilities in this form, despite being limited to infrared vision. In both its 10 and 50% forms, the normal ability possessed by this creature is the Aura Break ability, which has the effect of reversing the effects of aura-based abilities. Both of these forms are common for most trainers to see if they are lucky enough to spot the beast, but the true power of Zygarde can only be obtained through the gathering of all 100 cells and cores. In doing this, the creature's form does not change automatically, but its ability does change into Power Construct. If Zygarde is in either of its 10 or 50% form and takes enough damage to reduce its HP down to less than 50% of its maximum value when this ability is present, and it fears for the sake of the planet's ecosystem, this ability will activate and the creature will gather all of its cells and cores from across the planet into one, taking on its complete form. In this state, the creature experiences a slight decrease in its base speed stat and a slight increase in its base special attack stat, but more importantly, its base HP stat doubles again, and the creature regains half of its new maximum HP total in the process, granting it untold power, energy, and the ability to fly by releasing stored energy from its wings like rocket boosters in the process. This form has only ever been seen on a few occasions, such as during the battle for the Azoth Kingdom during the Azoth incident, where it saved the lives of hundreds of innocent Pokemon, and is the true form of Zygarde in its entirety. The humanoid appearance of the entity and its incredible height make it an imposing sight to behold, and the red and blue colored wings it possesses, as well as its tail, each contain a Zygarde core, working together in perfect harmony in order to use the true power of the entity to its fullest extent, radiating high-powered energy from the orifice on its chest to destroy those that would dare to threaten the planet's ecosystem.
Aside from its forms, Zygarde also has access to a number of unique attacks and techniques that it can learn that are otherwise exclusive to it or normally cannot be learned by it without the aid of a Zygarde core.
Normally, the signature attack of Zygarde is Land's Wrath, an energy-based attack that injects a burst of energy into the ground that then erupts and deals physical concussive damage to all nearby opponents. And while it is a bit weaker than an Earthquake attack, it is still useful as the damage it can do will not be inflicted on allied Pokemon, even if everything else stays the same. However, each of the 5 Zygarde cores is gifted with a unique power that can allow Zygarde to learn an additional special move that is normally inaccessible to it without that core. 2 of these moves, Dragon Dance and Extreme Speed, are not unique to Zygarde, but nonetheless granted a tactical edge that its normal learnable moves lack. The other 3, however, are completely unique to Zygarde. The first attack, Thousand Waves, involves Zygarde generating and releasing a moving wave of scale-like energy particles that bombard the opposition and deal physical damage in the process. What makes the move unique, though, is the fact that this wave of energy has the effect of burying the opposition in an invisible energy shield that restricts the movement and prevents them from fleeing or being switched out, granting Zygarde the chance to finish off a target without fear of the target fleeing. Secondly, there is Thousand Arrows, which deals the same amount of damage as Thousand Waves and uses the same type of projectiles, but with the difference that the scale-like projectiles are fired upward and rain down on the opposition from above. This move has the special ability to actually hit flying types, and the bombardment of projectiles will act to slam them into the ground and weaken the natural flying abilities or anything else that normally makes them immune to ground-type moves, in turn grounding them for the rest of their time on the battlefield and rendering them vulnerable to subsequent ground-type attacks and abilities that flying types can otherwise avoid normally, like Arena Trap. The attack even has the power to hit opponents that are on the first turn of a Fly, Bounce, or Skydrop attack, and will deal double the damage to them in the process while bringing them back down to the surface of the Earth. Lastly, there is the special move best utilized by Zygarde's complete form, the Devastating Core Enforcer attack. This attack involves Zygarde using all of the power in its cells and cores to generate and fire a massive beam of energy, which cuts a glowing green Z mark beneath the opposition before the energy from the attack erupts from the ground, dealing intense damage in the process. While the attack itself is not the most powerful Dragon-type attacks, it can still hit more than one opponent at once, as both Thousand Waves and Thousand Arrows do, and if it manages to hit an opponent that has already used an attack in battle, it will deal damage to the target while removing the effects of the opposition's abilities in the process, making it a devastating tactical weapon that can more than prove to be a serious threat if used correctly.
While Zygarde's powers are incredible at full strength and more than worth fearing, there is a common pattern to its signature attacks that directly connects it to legendary Pokemon Xerneas and Yveltal in the Kalos region.
It has been said in ancient tablets discovered near Terminus Cave that Zygarde is the Lord of Order, and that its purpose is to keep a balance in the natural world between creation and destruction, the two forces embodied by Xerneas and Yveltal respectively. If this is the case though, then it initially seems like Zygarde is ill-equipped for that job, as it is unable to use its best defensive attacks for the most part to harm the creatures because they both have some form of protection against Zygarde's primary types. However, Zygarde in its normal state does have access to the Aura Break ability, which completely counters their special abilities and essentially reverses their effects, decreasing the power of their Fairy and Dark-type moves used by the Pokemon as their primary form of attack. Moreover, 2 of Zygarde's signature attacks, Thousand Waves and Thousand Arrows, seem to be designed to snag and entrap these 2 Pokemon and leave them in a spot where they're potentially left vulnerable to Zygarde's strongest attacks. If this is correct then, it signifies that Zygarde is a lost trio master, and likely was first discovered in the Kalos region in response to the presence of these creatures, perhaps sensing that their time of reawakening was coming, and thus enticing it to convert into its 50% form, so at least had a fighting chance against these legendary beasts, though this never came to fruition thanks to the thwarting of Team Flare's plans. It is likely that if the 2 were to be awakened at the same time and allowed to go amok, Zygarde would be forced to utilize its power construct ability to achieve its complete form, which even just stat-wise is more powerful than both Xerneas and Yveltal, rendering the 2 no match for Zygarde's full power. The fact that Zygarde is supposed to keep order in the natural world demonstrates why it must fight against these creatures, for a world of creation becomes overpopulated, and the masses suffer when there is nothing left to keep everything and everyone alive, while destruction yields nothing but a barren world with nothing to cultivate or build. This relationship might also explain why Zygarde cells and cores have been spotted in the Alola region as of late, as the preservation actions of the Aether Foundation may be on the verge of tipping the scales of balance towards one side over another. As such, the duty that this beast has is perhaps greater than that of any other Earthborn Pokemon in the world, and in turn worth recognizing and honoring in the present, just as Xerneas and Yveltal have been honored since the beginning of written records in the Kalos region. While Zygarde and its appearances are very scarce, it is important to note their relatively recent involvement with the Magearna and Volcanion in the Azoth incident. The story of Magearna spans back 500 years, when it was first handcrafted through arcane technology by the scientist Nicola and presented to the princess of the Azoth Kingdom. While Magearna was originally intended to be a creature of peace and love, inside of it was the Soul Heart, a device powered by the life energy of other Pokemon that not only held the creature's memories and personality, but also served as the key to a devastating weapon that had been built by the same master as a defense for the royalty of the kingdom, hoping that it would be enough to turn the castle of the kingdom into a flying fortress with a weapon that could obliterate anything and anyone that dared to attack the kingdom. However, Nicola realized the danger that the weapon posed if it got into the wrong hands, and so stole away with Magearna to Nebel Plateau, a place where Pokemon that have been hurt by humans go to live in peace, where it was found by the Volcanion that guarded the plateau from attacks by poachers, and quickly formed a bond of friendship with it. In the present, however, Magearna was captured by the forces of the Azoth Kingdom under the direction of Alva, a tutor and personal friend of the current Prince of the Azoth Kingdom. The Prince had been tricked by Alva into thinking that the creature needed to be brought back to the kingdom, as that was where it belonged. But in truth, Alva was planning on using the Soul Heart of the machine in order to power up the fortress still contained within the castle, and the weapon that only the Soul Heart could activate. Volcanion and Magearna were chased across the kingdom and even to Nebel Plateau in trying to avoid capture, with a group of traveling trainers and the Princess of the Azoth Kingdom assisting them in building a bond with the two along the way, but Magearna was ultimately taken by Alva's forces and its Soul Heart removed. Alva was able to use the Soul Heart to power up the castle and activate the destructive weapon built into it, but Magearna's essence did its very best to cause the weapon to malfunction, fighting the urge to fire the weapon at anyone, and especially not at Nebel Plateau. Sadly, Alva was able to use his Pokemon to neutralize the resistance by hypnotizing the Soul Heart, and after firing the weapon at Nebel Plateau, the little bit of willpower left fighting the orders of Alva faded from the Soul Heart. Alva tried to fire the weapon again to destroy the rest of the area, but the wild Pokemon that lived on the plateau, with the help of Zygarde using Dragon Pulse in its complete form, were able to deflect the energy beam attack and save the home from complete destruction. The trainers and princes that had been helping Volcanion were able to board the ship, with Volcanion lending assistance in turn, and Alva was eventually forced to flee the fortress, where he crash-landed on the plateau after his backpack was attacked by one of the trainer's Greninjas. The reasoning for him leaving the ship was that, prior to his attempted escape, the Soul Heart had been successfully removed from the weapon, but in the process the fortress began to lose altitude and was on a collision course with Nebel Plateau. Volcanion used its explosion attack to completely destroy the fortress, while all of the people and Pokemon on board were able to escape, and while it was thought that the Volcanion had perished in the blast, it had actually survived. Though Magearna had seemingly lost all of its memories and personality as a result of its will being broken, the sight of Volcanion restored it to life, saving the poor creature's heart and soul in turn. In the aftermath of the incident, Alva was taken into custody and the broken remains of the fortress buried under Nebel Plateau, while the trainers involved in the incident went on their way and the prince himself left for his own adventure to see the world outside of the kingdom.
These legendary creatures are among the most mysterious of legendaries, and their powers are truly awe-inspiring, drawing power from all aspects of life in this world and the many facets that each represent in their own ways. Xerneas is a powerful, majestic creature whose immense spirit-type powers allow it to rejuvenate the world around it, no matter how badly ravaged it may be. And while this power does not come cheap, there is very little that it can't do. How quaint it must be then to disguise itself as merely a deer, an equally majestic creature that shows its dedication to the peace and health of the natural world that it chooses to dwell within. Yveltal, on the other hand, is a terrifying force of destruction both in purpose and in action. As its appearances aren't scary enough, its capacity to readily suck the life energy out of anything that gets too close to it is a terrifying ordeal. Taking on the form of a master bird only makes it that much more of a presence, looming in the sky above all others as it gets ready to act in the role it was born to act. Zygarde isn't very well understood, to put it lightly, but what is known more than shows how it is designed to help keep the other two in check to maintain order and balance, as both overabundance and devastation can wreak havoc on just about anyone if left out of control, even if the two forces aren't necessarily going after each other. It might take a truly global catastrophe for it to be summoned to its maximum power, but the unbelievable might and resilience of this beast in its complete form more than shows that the world is under great care and will always have a protector of some sort to keep it from growing or dying out of control.
With the power of life, destruction, and order at their disposal, and all the fixings needed to be forces to be reckoned with by any mortal, the members of the Order Trio are baffling but astounding beasts that can truly bring the many facets of life into any environment they roam into. Regardless of what essence they are a part of, it is more than likely that any sighting, let alone an encounter with these legendary creatures, is sure to be a terrifying and awe-inspiring moment to all that gaze upon them.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure you don't step out of line if you wish to really stay safe around these beasts, while the very essence of existence on this planet may be steps away from adding you to the history books and unleashing their true planetary powers.
Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.